is up, Sneeples? I am back. I took a small break after Nationals, but I'm back at it, making some more video and content and playing more Flesh and Blood. So I wanted to make this video today because I realized that we're in a bit of an area with Flesh and Blood right now. We're in between two big events, all right? Nationals has came and gone. There might be a few more if you're in a country that hasn't had theirs yet. But that's, for a lot of people, that's gone. And now we're just waiting for Bright Lights to come out. And then soon after Bright Lights, not even like that far after Bright Lights, we are getting a new ProQuest season where first place gets a gold foil. So a lot to think about as far as preparing for that. So in this video, I want to go over what heroes you can play right here, right now in preparation for that. And then what heroes you can kind of just sit on and wait until Bright Lights come out. And you don't need too much time to be good with this hero. So I got an alignment chart and a tier list. Let's go figure this out. Let's go. Okay, so here we go. We got the tier maker. Got the tier list here. There's no like S or F tier here. It's really just grouping these heroes. So we got the best for beginners, novice. So you're gonna need to have some practice to get good with these heroes, and an intermediate, having a good decent amount, and in hard, where you're always gonna have to be practicing in order to play well with the hero. Now I also have here an alignment chart. And really, I almost like this more. People like to see this more, so we're gonna do both. But I think this is actually better for what we're talking about, because you can have heroes that are easy to play but hard to master, and that doesn't really get to be said here. So here, the tier list, we're gonna do where your skill level or how much time you can put into the hero or the game itself, what heroes you should be looking at. And then here we'll kind of describe how well you can do competitively with the hero, or just being able to pick up and play the hero. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're going to start with the original four, so we'll go with Bravo here. I think Bravo is best for beginners. I think a lot of people have Bravo as their first hero, and he's good for that. They did a very good job with the first set, because not only is he right there, but so is Reinar. Reinar is actually really good for beginners too. These heroes, they have really one play pattern for them, and it's really pretty basic, their gameplay. So that's really where they're gonna be, because that's what's best for beginners. Dorinthia, I do think actually takes some practice, and the big reason is because of attack reactions. I think attack reactions adds a whole another element to Flesh and Blood, and you really have to decide when it's better to do an attack reaction and when it's not. I know that that might seem pretty basic, but when in practice it gets a little harder, right? And then finally we have Katsu, which I actually think Katsu does require a decent amount of practice. He is the aggro deck. He's the most aggro between the four, but I think he actually does require a lot of practice, which usually is not the case for aggro decks. So now let's go over here and let's see how they are lined up here. So start with Bravo. Bravo's pretty easy to play, and he's pretty easy to master as well. Like I said, he doesn't have a lot of game plans. He only really has one, so he's over in this sector. Okay, next up, Reinar. Reinar is easy to play, a little bit harder to master. I'm gonna kind of put him on the line here, and the reason is because it's hard to be competitive with Reinar, at least right now in this meta, right? And so you're going to have to know how to build your Reinar deck and how to pilot it, because it will vary depending on what meta and what heroes you're facing. So I do think there's a bit of that. Now, Dorinthia is a little bit harder to play. We'll put him. I don't think he's as easy as Bravo, so we'll put him right there. Dorinthia is a little harder to play. Not super hard. She's not over here by any means. but she is a little harder to play. Um, and then as far as mastering goes, I think she's easier to master than other heroes. It's just trying to play her competitively can be harder. Dorinthia is a very interesting case because with Dorinthia, you're really playing your opponent, not your opponent's deck. Um, there's a lot of bluffing involved. So I think once you can kind of figure that out, I think she becomes good. Or like easy to master, I should say. And then we have Katsu. Definitely the hardest to play out of the four. But pretty easy to master too. Once you kind of know your game plan, it's not too bad. Yes, you do have to be ever fluent. But yeah, Katsu really is kind of dimensional here. Like there was a Ninja Turtle Katsu, but that's long gone. All right, next up we have Arcane Rising Hero. So Azalea. I think Azalea is pretty easy. Maybe just a little bit of practice. You are introduced to the bow mechanic, and then she has her ability, which can require a little bit of practice and thought being put involved. Dash. I think Dash is a great beginner deck. There's a ton of different ways to play Dash, but even when you go all boost Dash or you go Tree Frog Dash, which is just a very life gaining defensive dash, they're both pretty easy to play, to be honest. So I think Dash is definitely a great deck for beginners. Viserai is going to take a little bit of thought. I think where he's at right now, he's just in the novice range. I could see with additional cards him being put into the intermediate range, but right now he's fairly easy to play. But it's going to require a little bit of practice. And then we have Kano, which I'm really torn between putting him here and here. I think my argument for Kano being here is that, yeah, he's pretty intimidating, as in he is the hero that doesn't play the game like every other hero. But once you know how to do his combo or how he like operates, he becomes a lot easier to play. I would say it is always like every meta he will have to really adjust to. So I don't know. It really is between here and here. I might give him the benefit of doubt and just put him here. Okay, let's go to the alignment chart. Okay, so Kano. Well, actually, we'll start how we started. Let's go Azalea. Azalea, I think, is fairly easy to play. Pretty easy. I think she's kind of very similar to Dorinthia, to be honest. A little bit, I think, a little harder to master. And I think Dorinthia is a little easier to play. Okay, let's go like that. No, actually, I like it like that. Just kidding. Okay, next up, we are going to talk about Dash. Very easy to play, like pretty much right here. Pretty damn easy to master too, honestly. So Dash is great for beginners for sure. And now we have Viserai. Viserai is fairly easy to play. I would say he's kind of hard to master. You do have to really put in a lot of work to get Viserai being consistent, and I think that's the biggest problem. I think that's why Dorinthia and Katsu and Azalea are easier, is because I think their decks are just a bit more consistent. Maybe I'll put them right there. They're a bit more consistent. Viserai, you're going to have to work and do a lot of practice in order to find that consistency within the deck and to operate on it. All right, finally, Kano. Kano is a hard one to play, but I think he's fairly easy to master. I think once you know how to play Kano, it's not a big leap to get really good with Kano. So, I think this is the one hero that I feel like I haven't really fully mastered. I guess there's a few other heroes, but so like, take my word here with a little bit of grain of salt. But from what I could tell, from talking to other Kano players is it's kind of like once you know, you know. And once you learn how to play Kano, it's not too hard to get really good with him from there. Okay, moving on. We have Monarch now. We only have 2 heroes, as the other 2 are banned, or not banned, but living legend, I should say. Bolton, you know, I kind of want to put him here, but I don't actually think he is there. I think Bolton's just hard to make good, but as far as to play, I think he's fairly easy to play, especially if you're going in combo. Then it's almost like right there, to be honest. But I think Bolton's fairly easy to play. So I'll put him there. And then Levia, I'll give Levia the benefit here that you're going to have to, I think with her having the redeemed, she has a late game plan, which is different than her early game plan. And then you always got to keep in mind for blood depth. So I do think there's a lot of moving parts that you have to attract for with Levia, and that's why I think she's a little harder. Okay, on to the alignment. All right, Bolton, easy to play. I would say pretty fucking hard to master, with the exception if it's combo, easy to master. Bolton is one of the harder decks to do, honestly. So we'll just put him right there. Levia, a little harder to play, and I think she's also hard to master. I think she is not an easy deck to really get competitive with. You have to really learn the patterns and know how to execute them. Like, her patterns change. She has an early game plan and a late game plan, and every game you'll have to implement both. So, okay, moving on. Next up is Tales of Aria. We only have 2 heroes here, and really only 1. Briar, it will be LL'd. So we actually, yeah, we'll just talk about Lexi here. So I think Lexi is about here. I do think she can get here, but I think she's really easy to pick up. She's almost here, honestly, as far as just for beginners, because she's really easy to pilot. I do think the bow intimidates a lot of new players. It is a bit different, so I'm going to give her this, but I do think she's one of the easier ones. Now let's go into here. Lexi, very easy to play, fairly easy to master too. I'll kind of put her where the Reinhardt is. I think she is, but she's definitely easier than Reinhardt, that's for sure. She is, it's not too bad to make her competitive, but you do have to learn how to make her competitive. She has the tools within her deck just to be an easy competitive deck. But if you're going to go far with her, you do have to learn how to block with your arrows and when to block with your arrows, and that's a really all. So I mean, yeah, she's really easy. She's almost like right here. Okay, moving on. Okay, so now we go into Uprising, and let's talk about Dromai. I think Dromai is actually requires a decent amount of practice, particularly the big dragon. I think the aggro version might be more here, but I still like her being here only because the aggro version still has like a kind of a dragon game plan, which isn't big dragon, but you do have to kind of know when you should be playing more dragons and versus just coming in with the attacks and, you know, this and that. Really, there's some decision lines, I should say, with Dromai. I think Fi is another great beginner deck. I think he's extremely easy to play, extremely easy to be good with, and has all the packages or all the cards he needs to be like a really good deck. And then Icelander, I think Icelander is a deck that is constantly adapting, even through the game itself, like your actual game. So I don't think there's ever one game plan you can go in with Icelander. So I do think she is a hard deck to pilot, and will always require practice to be good with. So let's go into the alignment chart. All right, so Dromai. I think she's definitely harder to play, and I do think she's actually pretty damn hard to master, to be honest. So I'm going to give her that. Fi, easy to play, easy to master. He's chilling with Dash here. All right, and then Icelander, hard to play, hard to master. I think that is That is it right there. Okay. Next up, we have from Dynasty, we were giving Arachne. I think Arachne is easy to play. Really hard to make good. I think Arachne kind of follows like Dorinthia, where there's a lot of attack reactions, so there's a little. It's not necessarily best for beginners, but Arachne is pretty one-dimensional, so I don't think it gets harder than that for Arachne. And then Arachne, easy to play, yeah. Hard to master, yeah, I think so. I think Arachne is a very hard tech to make work. So we'll put Arachne right there. Okay, next up, let's go into Uprising, where we were given the Riptide, which is almost good for beginners. But his ability kind of has to make you think a little bit on how you sequence stuff. So I'm going to give him a novice right there. And then Uzuri, I think she is pretty damn easy to play in the pilot the deck, but a lot harder to master with. So I do think she deserves the intermediate here. So Riptide, easy to play, I think. Not even too hard to master. It's hard to get like competitive with Riptide, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll put him like that. We'll put him right there. Okay, and then Uzuri, definitely easy to play, but a pretty hard one to master, I would say. Maybe give her right there. Like, definitely can be a great deck, but you're gonna, weirdly enough, have to know when to sequence things. And also, there's a few different versions. There's the aggro version, which is probably a little, but even easier to play. I would say. Well, I don't know. Even that one gets a little tricky, but the blue version is a little tricky as well. So I'm just going to give her a pretty hard to master here, but easy to play for sure. And then we have the last set, which is Dusk Till Dawn, until we get bright lights coming here soon. Yeah, Prism. I think, honestly, I haven't had good success with this Prism. And I didn't play Old Prism, but I knew why I didn't play Old Prism, because I started playing the game around the time of Everfest, or not Everfest, sorry, Tales of Aria. And she was pretty hard to play back then. So I think she still is hard to play. I think you're going to have to always constantly keep practicing Prism where to be good with her. And then Vincent, I think Vincent is intermediate. I think you're going to have to kind of put in a lot of work and time to kind of figure out. I think her ability makes her hard for new players for sure. So I would only recommend intermediate player. Prism, hard to master, hard to play. I'll put her right up there with Icelander. Maybe she's more like Kano, where it's like if you know, you know. But I don't know. So she's up here for me right now. And then Vincent. Vincent is much easier to play, but pretty hard to master. Vincent might be kind of in the middle here. I don't know. I'll give Vincent right there. Okay, so here's the alignment from hard to master to easy to master, and then hard to play to easy to play. And then, here's our tier list, right? So just take this with a huge grain of salt. But I think, honestly, every new meta, I'm playing with as many heroes as I possibly can. I just don't want to leave any stone unturned. So I want to know, is this hero good now? Or is this hero good now? So I have a lot of experience with all these heroes, with the exception of Prism, really. And I feel like this is where I would really put things. I think if you're a beginner, this is the best heroes for you. If you play once a week, you can probably get pretty good with these heroes. If you are, playing, twice, 3 times a week, playing some online games, these are heroes to really, put some time into. And then this is always practicing with these heroes. And then from here, you can just kind of look at this and be like, okay, you know, these heroes are hard to master. So you're going to have to put a lot of work to get good with these heroes up here. Where these heroes won't have to put as much work. And then on the left side, these heroes are they just play a lot easier. The deck just feels easy to play with. Versus these, the deck you're going to have to work with. You're going to have to work with the deck. So that's how I would interpret this. Thanks for watching, guys. And until next time, keep on fabbing.